Good afternoon. I am Scott Peyton, the State Director for Right on Crime in Louisiana. Welcome to Right on Crime's fifth and final installment of the Virtual Employer Forum series, which focuses on second chance hiring. I would like to welcome today's guest, Lindsay Jay Jeffrey with Orleans Reentry Court. She's a project coordinator. Tiffaney Noguera and Patricia Williams, who are both formerly incarcerated. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Please enter your questions at any time throughout the presentation in the Q&A bar. I will present them to our guests during the last 15 minutes of the webinar. We will also provide links and additional information in the chat bar throughout the webinar. For the past 2 years, Right on Crime has sponsored in-person employer engagement forums across the state to support second chance hiring of justice-involved individuals. COVID-19 restrictions have limited these types of in-person events, so we've moved to a virtual format. Today's webinar and previous ones will be made available on Right on Crime's webpage, which can be found at www.rightoncrime.com. You will also find the digital version of Right on Crime's employer handbook on our website. The handbook contains valuable information for employers to take into consideration when considering hiring the formerly incarcerated. For those of you who are participating in real time, a link to both the website, the handbook, and other related resources can be found in the chat area. Lastly, this webinar is approved for 1 hour of continuing education units for SHRM members. The activity ID and a link to the SHRM registration page can be found in the chat bar. The topic of today's webinar focuses on from incarceration to community and the unique challenges women face in reentry and the role employment plays in a successful reentry. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to introduce our 3 panelists first. Lindsay Jay Jeffrey, who is the Orleans Reentry Court Project Coordinator, was hired as the project coordinator for the Orleans Parish Reentry Court after the program received a COAP and COSAP award to introduce MAT services into its existing comprehensive wraparound services model. Prior to her work with the Orleans Reentry Court, Lindsay worked as a staff attorney at the Orleans Public Defender's Office and then served as a law clerk to the Honorable Lori A. White of Orleans Parish Criminal District Court. Lindsay is a graduate of Baylor University and Tulane University Law School. We will hear directly from Tiffaney and Patricia about their journey from incarceration to community, so I will not read off their biographies. We're going to go ahead and get started with Patricia Williams. Patricia, thank you for joining us today. You participated in Right on Crime's forum, in-person forum in Shreveport back in 2019, and we're happy to have you back with us today. Please take a few minutes to share with our audience and those that are watching about your journey from incarceration to community.
All right, thank you, Scott, and I appreciate the opportunity to participate in this forum. My journey into incarceration actually began when I was 16. As we all know, that many people who are incarcerated get there not because that was their dream, but it was because of an event that happened in their lives that changed the way that they thought about themselves, the way they thought about the world. And for me, as I say, it started when I was 16. My family was not the best environment. And for a 16-year-old, I wanted to be like every other 16-year-old. I wanted to be out with my friends, have a boyfriend, date, and that just wasn't an option for me. So at 16, I made the decision to get pregnant because I wanted out of my house. I wanted to be on my own, thinking that if I got pregnant, I could get married, I could have the white picket fence, I could have the life that I always dreamed of, and it backfired on me. I was forced into having an abortion at 16, which changed my whole outlook on life. I began to see that what people thought of you was more important than who you really were on the inside. I felt like if my parents couldn't love me, then who could? And at 16 began my issues with money, and continued on until I was probably in my 40s. Not going into a lot of details during that time period, but what ended up happening is I ended up embezzling from the company that I worked for. And I went to prison. I did over 10 years time for that. As I've said before, I don't regret doing time because of the people that I met, the lessons that I learned about myself. I grew up mentally in prison, and I learned so many different things. When I came out, it was different. I'd been gone for 10 years. I believed I had the education to get a good job. I believed I had the resume, but I didn't. I would go into employment agencies dressed with a suit on, a resume, and they would think I was the perfect candidate for a position, to only be told that they protected employers from people like me. Because I realized that when you have a theft charge, you might as well have a violent criminal record, because no one wants you to do cashier. No one wants you to work at McDonald's. They don't want you anywhere near them. And fortunately, I landed into Goodwill, who gave me an opportunity, and they saw past my criminal record. And I've now been at Goodwill for 5 years. And I now manage 2 Department of Corrections reentry programs for Caddo and Bossier parishes. And I see the stigma surrounding people coming out and needing to find work. And it's not necessarily their criminal history, it's just the simple fact that they have a background. And that criminal activity could have happened 30 years ago, and it still hinders them. We have members in Caddo and Bossier Parish who won't look at someone regardless of when it took place. The ability to get an expungement or a pardon is costly. It takes time. And people coming out of prisons are in survival mode. They need a job. They need a place to live. And what I would like to see from employers is to look at the individual, not at their criminal history. Because people who make mistakes, whether you broke the law or you cheated on a spouse, whatever the mistake was in your past, you grow from that. Mistakes are opportunities for learning. And that's the way mistakes should be looked at and viewed upon, are opportunities for learning, growth, change, and the ability to impact the community in a positive way, based on past experiences. I would love to see employers be able to take the risk to say, yes, I hire ex-offenders, rather than hire them, but not change the public in any discernible way based on their experience with hiring ex-offenders. I would love to see prisons do employment fairs that are truly employment-based, employer-based, rather than service-based. Those services are going to be readily available to them for Medicaid, SNAP benefits, child support services. Any of those are available and readable, and most people know about those. But we need true employer fairs where employers are present. And again, what I would like to say to employers on the call is give us a chance. Give us a chance. Because for those employers who take the risk, we know you're taking a risk on us. And we will become some of your best employees and your most loyal. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Patricia. Just a little follow-up. Do you think when you were incarcerated, were there services provided by DOC that were that helped you when you got out?
Well, sure, because, and I say that because of the opportunities that I had for a job within the prison system. I was a tutor, I taught math, and the 10 years I was there, I was also able to take American Sign Language classes. I became a certified ASL interpreter, which, if I had went into that field, would increase my likelihood of being employed greater. There's counseling. What I would like to say is that it would help offenders coming out if DOC staff who work with us 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, could become references for us, because they know us better than anyone in our time in incarceration. They knew us when you came in. They know us, how we progress and how we've made changes, and who we are when we leave. And so being able to rely on DOC for some kind of referral for employment would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, you make some great points too about the employer fairs and the job fairs and all those things that take place while people are incarcerated. Because of COVID, DOC has been entertaining doing a virtual type job fair with employers and with those persons that are incarcerated, which may make more employers available to participate. There are some that may be leery of going inside of the prison. This would definitely open the door to have more employers available. And you're right,
Mm-hmm.
the other type of services, will be available, and those are fairly easy for persons to obtain, like the SNAP benefits and those type of benefits. But linking and interacting with employers is a much different story.
Sure, and I'd like to add the Department of Corrections has made great strides since I've been released. There was just a webinar informational conference on ATLO, which is a job portal that employers could go in and put jobs available, and certain offenders have access to that. So Department of Corrections has made great strides in that area.
What year were you released, Patricia?
2016.
Thank you very much, Patricia. We may have some more questions. I see some are piling up in the Q&A, and we'll address those at the end. We'll move on to Tiffaney. Tiffaney participated in Right on Crime's Baton Rouge Employer Forum, and we are happy to have you today, Tiffaney, with us. Tiffaney, just like Patricia, take a few minutes and kind of walk us through your journey from incarceration to community.
Yes. Well, hi, my name is Tiffaney, and I too am just so grateful to be here and to be a part of this forum, and it just really means a lot to be able to advocate for people that are currently incarcerated coming into the community. For me, when I had went into prison, by the time I found my way into the system, I had already been in the system, really, because I had been addicted to drugs, left home at 15, had a baby young. The man that I had a baby with was 12 years older than me. And he was addicted to drugs, and so I found my way into that life, and I was incarcerated twice, actually, in prison. And the second time, I just knew, I was like, this cannot keep happening. Like, I just can't keep doing this. And so I got involved in every program that I could get involved in, thinking, this is gonna make me a better person. The more that I can get involved in, the more I can learn, the more opportunity I'm gonna have when I get out. I served as a wildland firefighter. I got into catering and, culinary, and got degrees in those. And when I got released, I didn't find it easy at all to gain employment. It was actually very hard. It was hard, you know, you're coming back into society after, for me, it was 4 years. And so, you know, there's a lot that's changed in 4 years. And I had kids to take care of. And so, you know, I was coming back into society and just found it really difficult to find a job. Employment was probably my biggest hurdle. And so I can remember getting into the catering field, and I got into that field, and you know, my rent was $1,000 a month. And I can remember taking it one day at a time. Like I literally took one bill at a time, and I just paid one bill at a time. And sometimes I worked jobs and events as they came. And, you know, I just refused to fail, right? And I think it's really, you know, when you're in the street life, you kind of know the rules that you're playing by. Like we have a set of rules, and I say we have a set of rules that we live by when you're on the streets, right? And so when you get clean and you get sober and you have this system and people telling you, you know, hey, look, you're going to get your life together, and you know, this is what you need to do it, and you start playing by their rules. I think I had an expectation that it would be easier, and that, you know, providing a life for myself wouldn't be as difficult, right? And so, but like I said, that wasn't the case. I do remember there was one employer that I had that this guy, I would show up at his jobs, he would hire me, and I'd be like, are you hiring? And he would say, no, I'm not hiring, because I did a lot of temporary work. It was just events, from event to event to event. It was nothing stable, and I really wanted that stability. I really wanted to wake up every day and know I was going to work and knew that I was going to have this amount of money coming in. And so this guy, he was like, no, I'm not hiring. And I said, well, I mean, but you need help. Like, look around. This place is a mess. And so he kept telling me he wasn't hiring. And finally, I just like decided to show up. And so I showed up every day for 6 months. And that man put me to work every day for 6 months. And he paid me. And I mean, I think it got to the point where he was like, you know, if maybe I was running late or something that day, he was like, where's Tiffaney? Is she coming today? And so he expected to see my face, you know. And as time went, I had a little boy that had a heart defect. Well, I went from $8 an hour to $10 an hour to $12 an hour. And then I decided that I was going to go work in the plant at some point. And by this time I had been released for 5 years. And so I got my TWIC card, and I went to work in the plant. And then I had a little guy, and I found out that he actually had a heart defect. And so I realized at that point that the plant was not going to be an option for me going back. And so I really just, you know, started, to be quite honest, I just prayed about it. And I had always wanted to do real estate. And so at that point, I managed to get my real estate license. And, you know, I feel like I've done well as far as over the course of time, right? And putting those things behind me. I recently actually just did a background check for a job because I relocated to Arizona. And so I did a background check for a job, and they said they only went back 7 years, and I was released in 2009. They said they only went back 7 years, and everything actually came up, and they called me and, you know, asked about it. And I think that there's a thing of like, you know, being honest. And for me, it was like, you know, you asked me, had I been convicted in the last 7 years? And I was upfront and honest, and, you know, no, the answer is no. And I think it's like, how long do we need to go back? How long, you know, at what point can we stop talking about it? At what point can we move on and be the people that we've become, you know, and that we're able to just kind of put this behind us and move on from it. And I would like to see, I would love to see employers give more people a chance, and a chance when they get out, right? Because I mean, we have lives when we get out. We have bills that we have to pay. Some of us have restitution that we have to pay. You know, you've got kids you have to feed just like everybody else. And, you know, who has 5 years to wait? And I think that's where the recidivism rate gets to be so high, is, you know, when people don't know what to do, they kind of tend to go back to what worked. And for me, that just wasn't an option. You know, my dad died right before I came home, and I had just made up my mind that I didn't care if I became homeless. Obviously, I didn't want that, but I wasn't guaranteed. When I first got released, I didn't know. You know, I was scared to death every day of becoming homeless, of not being able to afford my rent. And so I think, you know, at that point for me, it was just like, look, if that happens, and no matter what it takes, I'm not going back to that. But I think that there's so much talent and there's so much money spent in programs and schooling and all these things to paint a picture that you're doing this so that when you can get out, you know, you're gonna be able to transition back into society. But we really need help from the employers to be able to make that happen.
Thank you, Tiffany. Tiffany, if I could sum that up, because I heard it a year ago in Baton Rouge, and persistence would definitely be a one-word summary of your journey there. Not accepting the barriers as they came to you, and you know, through persistence and your faith, you know, overcoming those barriers. So thank you for again giving us your time and sharing your story. Lindsay, thank you for joining us today. We would like for you to give us kind of a brief overview of the Orleans Reentry Court and what role that you play as the project coordinator there.
Absolutely, Scott. And I just want to thank Scott and Right on Crime for having me here today. It's an honor to be here with two such distinguished other panelists. Like Scott said, my name is Lindsay Jeffrey. I'm the project coordinator with the Orleans Reentry Court Program. And the Orleans Reentry Court Program was started by Judge Lori White and Judge Arthur Hunter back in 2011. It is a hybrid program that involves participants spending 2 years incarcerated, either at the Louisiana State Penitentiary for men or at the Louisiana Correctional Institute for women, for our women participants. And so they spend 2 years after they plead guilty. They are sentenced to the Reentry Court Program, and they spend 2 years, up to 2 years, sometimes a bit more, in the in-jail portion of the program. And while they're there, they are required to get their HiSET or their GED. They are required to get at least 2 vocational certifications, and those are in nationally recognized programs that range anywhere from automotive to computer coding to cosmetology. I believe that the Department of Corrections is working on a CDL program for those who want to pursue that route. But I believe there's over 20 vocational programs that the Department of Corrections offers now. And that is in connection with community colleges in Louisiana. And so in addition to getting their education and vocational training, they also are required to do life skills training, as well as receive substance use treatment if that has been an issue or identified as an issue. And a really unique part of the program, the in-jail part of the program, is each participant has a vocational mentor who will help them through their vocational classes and get their certifications, help them on their test. They also have a social mentor, and these mentors are generally inmates who have been sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, who have used their time in prison and, you know, really changed their outlook. They usually have gotten their degree, their theology degree, which you can get while you're in, and they really work with our participants to try to teach them some of the lessons they've learned. So when our participants are released to the out of jail portion, they kind of have a new mindset and really have cemented the steps they want to take to break the cycle of incarceration moving forward. So after our participants spend their time in the in-jail portion of the program, they will get, and while they're in the in-jail portion of the program, they work with the reentry court team throughout this entire time. Because I'll just go ahead and say this. The goal of the program is to allow our participants to begin working on their rehabilitation and getting resources to help themselves from the time they're sentenced to the in-jail portion of the program. So when they're released, they're ready to hit the ground running. We've already lined up employment. We've already built their resume, and they've already started getting any sort of treatment needs they need to really holistically address their individualized case management needs. So we have 2 case managers, and as well as they're supervised by a probation officer and the judge. While they're in the in-jail portion of the program, which is largely run by the mentors in the Department of Corrections, we will go up and see them, usually about twice annually, tour the program, talk to them, just try to, and our case managers meet with them monthly to discuss their needs, see what they may need help with when they're out, but also anything that they don't feel like they're getting while they're in the in-jail portion of the program. So we try to take a very holistic wraparound services approach that begins from the time they're sentenced through when they successfully complete the program. So upon their successful completion of the in-jail portion of the program, they will be released to 3 to 5 years of supervised probation. And that will be, again, under Judge White, who does it right now, a probation officer, 2 case managers, and myself. And once they're in the out of jail portion of the program, the very first thing that we look at is finding them stable housing and stable employment. And so we actually require them to have stable employment and housing before they can be released. However, and I'll talk a little bit more about this in a few minutes, but we can't, stable employment, as these 2 other ladies have pointed out, it's not always easy to find, especially when they're in jail. So sometimes we'll find them anything where they can come out and start making a paycheck, and then we'll continue to work on resume building to give them other services, and we'll continue that search to find them stable employment. So in addition to the stable housing and employment, we also, driver's license reinstatement is a huge barrier for transportation, and generally there's issues with their license being suspended because when they were incarcerated, maybe they didn't deal with their insurance correctly or tell the OMV that they were going to be incarcerated. So then their insurance lapsed, and Louisiana has now put a hold on them because it looked like they were driving around without insurance. There's very heavy fines and fees that come from that. A lot of times they have attachments from multiple traffic courts. And so we try to address those on their way out and then continue addressing that. And then also collateral other legal needs, such as child support. It's a big one. Consumer debt is sometimes an issue. Sometimes there's been issues while they're incarcerated, but I mean, there really are the collateral consequences of being incarcerated legal. I mean, they are widespread. And so we're really trying to address those because we're finding it really affects their ability to have stable employment and stable housing. It can affect all aspects of their life and really can be a barrier. And so one thing, I'm a project coordinator. I was brought on when the program got a federal grant, and we got money from the federal government to provide increased substance use issue services, including MAT services, which is medicated assisted treatment for those suffering from opiate abuse disorder. I think most people are well aware now that we have an opiate crisis in this country. And so one thing that I have really worked on is when we're providing holistic case management services is really to address physical health needs, mental health needs, and also substance use needs. And what we're seeing is all these participants, everyone who's been in contact with the criminal justice system, I mean, that is a traumatic experience in itself, but generally they were in that situation because they were in a bad situation. They were making bad choices. They got caught up in something they probably shouldn't have been, but that usually is the result of trauma. And so what we were seeing is we would help find people stable jobs, stable housing, but then they've never dealt with the substance use disorder, the trauma they've been through. They didn't have primary care physicians. And so it becomes very hard to keep a stable job when you're not dealing with some of these underlying issues that led to your conviction in the first place. So I work with a team of service providers. We have a primary care physician. It's actually a nurse practitioner who they see for all their physical needs. We have addiction specialists through Tulane Medical School that we contract with. We also have a medical psychologist who does a lot of trauma therapy. And what we are finding is that when we link participants up to all these services, it really allows them to work through some issues and really The most important thing about providing these services, but also finding stable employment, is they need to find value in themselves, and they are valuable. These are humans who made a bad choice. And so we really try to destigmatize what it means to be a previously incarcerated person, because at the end of the day, these are just humans who made a mistake, and part of that was being incarcerated, but all humans make mistakes, and all humans have issues they need to work through. And so we like to be very upfront with employers, and our case managers work with them. We're very clear about what the charge was, what the crime was they went in for, you know, the steps they've taken, our plan that we continue to, that our case managers are continuing to work with these people. And we invite our employers to come. We have monthly docket days where all of our participants come in, employers come in, our service providers come in, and the participants talk to the case managers, to the judge, about the issues they're facing and their unique hurdles, their successes. And so we love to have employers come and see that and really see the program. And we love to partner with, we really believe in transparency. We believe in the value of all human beings. And so we love to partner with employers who also share that and can see the value in our participants and the value that they have to offer. Because what we are finding is a lot of participants who have been incarcerated, and in a lot of these vocational programs they're doing, we're getting feedback from employers that they're actually better trained than some of the people who just got that degree at, for instance, Delgado Community College, because our participants are very motivated while they're in the in-jail portion to focus on what they need to focus on. You know, they're giving their all to the vocation. And then when they get released, they're very motivated not to be in that situation again. And so we actually find that if we can link up participants with stable jobs, with employers, you know, that care about them, that are not taking advantage of them because they are previously incarcerated, but believe in them and giving them a chance, and working with us to continue just helping them, you know, the consistency, their drive, I mean, you really see some amazing traits that you would want in any employee. And so again, like these other panelists, I highly encourage you to, and please reach out to me if you're interested in ever viewing what we do, but just encourage you, you know, to give people a chance and to really look at, you know, what may have caused the issues. But these are highly motivated individuals, and just some of the most amazing people I've ever met have been my participants, and to see how they can succeed when they refine that value in stable jobs, it has been amazing. So, and now I know I kind of just went on for a long time, but I'm happy to answer any follow-up questions, Scott.
Yeah, Lindsay, what your background as a public defender, how has that helped you to understand the people that are in the program and better, you know, work with them through the roadblocks and
Mm-hmm.
stumbling and the continued, because it's a process. I'm sure people,
Absolutely.
you know, have setbacks, and how does that previous work that you did help you out in your current position here?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And I think it helped me out quite a bit, because my time as a public defender essentially allowed me, I was a public defender for about 3 years, and I represented over 400 clients during that time, which is, you know, a lot. Probably shouldn't be that way, but it really allowed me to view the system, the criminal justice system, through my client's lens, through their eyes, and really see the barriers and the problems that, I mean, I would have a client who would be incarcerated for 3 months pre-trial while we tried to work out their case. And then seeing them released, they've lost their job, they've lost their housing. Now maybe they're on probation because they took probation. It just really allowed me to see what these barriers are, how the system really just grabs a hold and will not let go and continues. And even some of these things that we see as trying to provide oversight or help, but sometimes these conditions, and you're having to go back to court every month to pay fines and fees. You're having to go to drug test. Meanwhile, you're also trying to find a job. And so I guess I would say it really just helped me to understand what some of these issues are. Sometimes from having my clients call me and say, you know, thank you for getting me probation. I can't find a job now. My probation officer is going to put me back in jail. I don't have anyone to help me. And at the time, as a public defender, I didn't have the resources to help people, after they dealt with their case. And so this job really allowed me to then put the knowledge I had gained hearing directly from previously incarcerated people and the resources they needed. It allowed me to help implement a program that provides those resources.
And about how many people are participating in the reentry court program?
So right now we have 20 participants in the probation portion of the program, and this is only Orleans Parish. It's now been expanded to, I believe, 5 other parishes. We have about 20 participants in the probation portion, and we have about 12 participants in the in-jail portion. But those numbers are both very low due to COVID, because we have been unable to either sentence any new participants into the program. So when people are graduating, we are not being able to replace them.
And, I'm sure you're aware that the 5-year recidivism rate for people who are just released from DOC facilities is about 43%. I know a few years back, I toured Angola with Judge Schlegel, and he had mentioned that this program had, I think at the time, a 9%, or it was a single-digit recidivism rate. Is that still the case?
It is still, it's kind of tricky, and there's, you'll see different figures from other places. As part of our grant, we're actually working with a research partner at Loyola University. So we'll hopefully have some more concrete statistics in the years to come, or in the next year or two. But yes, we're seeing, for Orleans, we're seeing about a 5 to 10% recidivism rate, which is much less than the 44% that you mentioned.
Yeah, as a former probation officer, one thing we had in common with the public defender's office was the great volume of cases. And, as a public defender with over 100 cases or 200 cases, you really can't put all the work into that individual case. And as a probation officer with 140 cases, it's almost impossible. The conditions require that someone be employed, yet that individual officer doesn't have the time to dedicate. And that's what's so great about the reentry court. It's good and bad. It's bad that it's a low number as far as the opportunity of people to participate, but it's good for those 20 that are in the program. They're going to get the individualized care that they need to move forward. So that's really, really good. Just one last follow-up with you, Lindsay. What are some of the hesitations that employers have when you first confront them or ask them about hiring persons that are in your program?
Well, I think, unfortunately, as you just kind of hit on with the high volume of cases for all the system players, really, and people not coming out with resources, I don't think it's inaccurate to say that a lot of people who have been incarcerated have not been prepared at all to be good employees. And so I do think that what we hear a lot is, well, we tried, we hired, we've hired this person and this person, and they always quit, and there's turnover, and it didn't work out. And so a lot of, and that goes back to the transparency, and that's just being very transparent about what our program is and what we hope to do. But there's a stigma, some of it true, some of it not true, but they've generally not had good experiences with people who had been previously incarcerated. That is the biggest hurdle that we see. We're generally able to work through that, and it's a continuing conversation. Another issue I would say is, I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. I'm sorry, I'll let you know if I regain it. But that's the main issue, is just trying to let them know that this is not their typical, this is not just someone who's going to be there for a week and then quit.
Right, and that's kind of what we've gone over in the previous 4 webinars, was to dispel some of these preconceptions that employers have about the formerly incarcerated, and basically show, and that's what we're doing today, show that there's thousands of Tiffaneys, there's thousands of Patricias out there,
Right.
that are that are dedicated,
Mhm.
devoted, and loyal. And as you can tell, both Tiffaney and Patricia didn't just get a job and leave from there. They're continuing to help out people in who were in their shoes just a few years ago. And I think that's a great testament to the loyalty and dedication. Patricia, mentioned that it was the friends that she met and the people that she met while she was incarcerated. It was one of the positive things that she brought out. And I mean, that just goes to show, and everyone's touched on it today, that we all make mistakes, and having hope and having redemption and having people recognize that once you get out. I think Tiffaney kind of brought it all home when she said, at what point does she get to move on with her life? And, if we're constantly bombarded with the mistakes that we've made in the past, there's really no incentive. And I like how your program said you want people to find value in themselves. And it's hard to find value if everything you do, from housing to applying for a car loan, to getting life insurance, to getting your driver's license, comes back to a mistake you made,
Right.
5 to 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
But,
And
we are moving in a good direction here in Louisiana. We have the clean slate legislation, which may come through, or portions of it, in 2021. That's going to automate the expungement process. Will help people with background checks, and there's many other things that are going through that will help remove some of these barriers to reentry.
right. And I was able to regain my train of thought, and it kind of is in connection to what you were saying. But I would say the other hesitation we get from employers is if they're worried, well, is this employee going to have to miss work for these docket days? Are they going to have to be going to meet their probation officer, going to get a random drug test? And while, I mean, there are some parts of those that's required of the program, and so we do have to have that conversation, but generally, these are people that need those resources. Just like everyone needs resources, but at the end of the day, once they see that it's really not that much time they're away from work, and these things are really helpful, and because we're so transparent and willing to work with them, then once employers see that, oh, it might be worth it to not have this employee one morning, every month, because they're becoming one of my best and most dependable employees otherwise. So I would say that just explaining that having resources and having certain requirements, while it may, you may have to work around it a little bit, and employers don't always love that, but I would say that it really pays off if you're willing to work with that.
Absolutely. And Tiffaney, you want to hop in here?
I kind of wanted to add to that, because I think sometimes we can make it such a negative that somebody's reporting into a probation officer, somebody's doing drug testing, somebody's doing, but how awesome is that the employer doesn't have to worry about being the checkpoint for all of that, right? That's not their job. Their job is to carry on with their business and teach this person, how to do their job, and let probation and the system deal with all of that. So yeah, we're missing, you're missing work one day, but that this person is taking drug tests, this person is checking in with probation, this person is doing all of the things that they're supposed to be doing because they're a part of this program, and they're being held accountable in this area of their life, right? So, hey, this person has an accountability, we're going to call it partner. This person has an accountability partner for this area of their life. And as long as they're doing the things that they need to do on this program, they're showing up to work. And so I think that that's awesome. If we could just change the way that we perceive it and our mindset around it, it could really be a bonus. To know that you're hiring somebody because I think a lot of it truly is a lack of trust, right? How do I know that I'm not going to hire this person? They have a theft charge. How am I going to know that they don't steal from me? And it's not going to cost my business to bring this person on. Well, this person that you're hiring has an accountability partner. We hold them accountable, and these are the ways that we do so.
Scott, this is Pat. May I address that as well, please?
Absolutely.
All right, so with the Exit 318 reentry program, the big part is employer education. A lot of employers just don't know what's available to them. When you're hiring an ex-offender and they're on parole and they're a part of a program that offers wraparound support services, I mean, the employer is getting a huge network team. For instance, you have someone who rides the bus. An employer needs to be educated on poverty time. If someone has been in poverty all their life, time is not that real important to them. They're used to waiting in line for a bus or benefits or anything like that. So when you have an employee who is dependent on the bus for transportation, they're at the mercy if that bus arrives on time, if it breaks down. They can get early, they can get late. An employee can be riding on the bus for 2 hours just to get to work at 8 o'clock. And so the employers that we've been able to work with have been great about understanding that. They make accommodations for schedules. If a lot of times our participants have never worked before, so they don't even know about how to be a good employee. So with the wraparound services, you get job coaching skills. An employer can call and say, hey, look, this person that is not reacting well when I give him instruction, or he doesn't know how to walk away from an argument with another person. And so we can provide those job coaching skills, and employers need to be educated. And it's great. Like when I came out, there wasn't a program. There weren't any support services other than your parole officer. There was nothing in the community that was going to help you with these things. But now there are. And it boils down to employer education, changing an ex-offender's mindset about who they are and what they believe about the world around them. Oftentimes they come from a background where all they've known is failure, and they're even scared of success. So they sabotage their own selves a lot of times. It's just a huge problem on the employer side, on the ex-offender side. But again, 5 years ago, there weren't these resources, but today there are. And I'm really excited about that.
I totally agree, Patricia, that I've been out of probation and parole a little over 2 years, and just in that short period of time, the focus has changed tremendously with the regional reentry managers and working more with community partners. I would have loved to have had access to as many resources as I see now. It obviously would have made my job a lot easier, but it would have provided more tools for the people that were under my supervision. Now I live and worked in a rural area, so that there were different challenges there, but still the resources and there's more groups, and I think people are just coming together to tackle the problem as one. We do have a few questions. The first question or a series of questions from Consuela Gaines out of who is a great champion for persons who are returning back across the state. She's in my area in the Acadiana region. Consuela asked, how long, and this will be for Patricia, how long did it take for you to get the job with Goodwill after you were released from prison?
Okay, the job with Goodwill took me about 6 months. My first job was about 3 months, and it was in janitorial, and I would clean banks in the evening. And the only reason I got that was because I didn't do background checks. But it took me about 6 months to get the position with Goodwill.
And I see Tiffany's made it back. This question can be both for Patricia and Tiffany. What do you think DOC could have done better to prepare you for the obstacles you faced with employment? And we'll start with Tiffany on that question.
I'm not real sure, to be honest. I feel like there's counseling inside. I think that there was classes inside. You know, you get up every day, you go to work. I think, and you know, you're required to, I guess, as much as you care if you get a ticket or not, right? Like some people don't care and they don't go, but I mean, so you're required. I do agree with Patricia. Like it would be awesome if the people, you know, our detention officers, our counselors, all of those people were able to do, you know, references for us. I don't believe that they're allowed to. I think that would be great. I think a lot of what I found though is when you come out, so much of it, some of it is corporate, right? So sometimes you're fighting the corporate, you know, I'm sorry, we don't hire felons, or, you know, they do the background check and the background check automatically disqualifies you. So even if you're taking classes on the inside and you're getting all these skills, you know, I came out and I put them on my resume. Like I had a catering certificate. I had all these different things that, yeah, I put them on my resume. I mean, that was work experience that I had. But at the end of the day, if you can't pass the background check, you can't pass, there's no job, you know? And I think, the other part of that is a lot of times people don't think about this aspect of it too, is I did mention, I rented places from private people, but a lot of times people don't think to go that route, or they're afraid to have the conversation. And so they go to apartment complexes and they go to all these, you know, different places, and they do background checks too. And so you can't get an apartment, which, you know, I find it just hard to find a job and be stable if you don't have somewhere to live, first of all, and if you can't, you know, find stable employment. It just makes it everything else so much more difficult. But to answer your question, I don't know about the DOC aspect of it. I don't know. I feel like that you take what you can from whatever aspect. If they allowed their people to be references or to write letters of recommendation, you know, even on your disciplinary history, be able to say, hey, look, you know, this is what I have. Like I was incarcerated 4 years. I never had a ticket. And those things, I think maybe it would help.
Thank you, Tiffany. You did mention that you obtained your real estate license, and that was here in Louisiana. How difficult was that process for you?
Well, for me, because it was like, I think it was like after 7 years of my my conviction date, and because for whatever reason they did the background check, nothing came up. I had to go before a board of 12 and basically present my case. I had to be honest, and they had to vote me in or out. And at that point, I think for them, the big question was, how do we know that you are restored and that you've changed? And for me, it was the simple fact that, hey, none of this came up. You know, I did the background check. None of it came up, and I was honest anyway. And I brought it before you and I gave it to you. And so 11 of the 12 voted me in, and I was able to get my license. Now, I will say a couple years prior to that, I was waiting tables. And in order to wait tables to serve alcohol on the table, I had to go to the liquor board, and I had to get some kind of like server's license or something. And the guy would not give me the license that I needed. And I was like, so just like, to wait tables, like really, like you're gonna take away my ability to provide for my family. I can't even wait tables. And I just remember that feeling for me, because it was like, and I don't mean anything by this, but you know, I had big visions and dreams for myself. And to me, I did not want to be a server. That was not my goal, dream job, right? I was just doing it to pay my bills. And so to have that taken away, to be like, I can't even wait tables, which in so many people's eyes, that's like the lowest of the low, you know, was just really eye-opening for me.
Thank you, Tiffany. And You also went through the process and obtained a TWIC card as well. Was that a difficult process?
That was probably the easiest process, actually. I was really nervous. I think anytime a ex-offender walks in and there's a background check involved, it's a nerve-wracking experience, because you always have that fear, like, oh my God, am I gonna be able to do this, And I feel like the TWIC process, the TWIC card thing was easy. It's once you hit your five-year mark, some of those barriers start to fall away, right? But so it's not like 5 years and after that you have as much of a struggle, because even on applications, have you been convicted of a felon in the last 7 years or the last 5 years? But what do we do with these people from release to 5 years? I think that's the biggest obstacle, right? Is how do we carry them through or help them, get from the gate to your 5-year mark? If I can't even wait tables, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I think that's a huge, like I said, that was a huge eye-opening experience for me.
Again, I would like to thank Patricia and Tiffaney for sharing their remarkable journeys with us. And thank you both for continuing to help make a difference for people who are returning back to society. A special thanks to Lindsay, whose work at the Orleans Reentry Court continues to be the gold standard for reentry programs. This webinar concludes our 5-part series on second chance hiring, at least for 2020. An email with a link to today's webinar will be sent out shortly. For more information about second chance hiring and Right on Crime's virtual forums, visit our website at www.rightoncrime.com. Once someone has paid their debt to society and has demonstrated that they have turned their lives around, there should not be unnecessary barriers for a second chance to be a successful member of society. And I think Tiffaney pointed that out. There is a point that we have to move on and allow people to become productive and successful members of society. Thank you all. Thanks for everyone that joined us and that has followed us through these past 5 webinars. Thank you very much.